Hello, my name is Samuel Biondelolo, and this is Module 1, Lecture 2 of the Vectorworks 2020 course. Today I'm just going to talk quickly about layers, classes, and how those should work in your drawing, and just some basic ways to lay out your page. Um, layers and classes, the key difference technically with Vectorworks and the difference between a couple other drafting programs is that layers really are stacked. So it's one thing on top of another. So layers actually are hierarchical. So for example, we only have one layer here, but you can assign them to different stacking orders. So if you have multiple layers, think about them if you're drafting, say, a house. All right, so the first layer of the house would be layer one, the second layer would be layer two, and the third layer would be layer three. So they're actually hierarchical, they're stacked on top of each other. You might also think about it like if you're just drafting a room, you might have the first layer might be the carpet, the second layer might be the ceiling, and then the third layer might be the roof. So they're hierarchical, they have a stacking order, and you sort of see them one on top of each other. The other thing similar to layers is classes. Classes, if we're going by the house example, are similar to, for example, the plumbing fixtures, or the furniture, or the kitchen cabinets. It's something that could be on any level. It could be on any layer. If you're looking at, say, lighting fixtures, you could have some lighting fixtures that are on the ceiling. You could have some lighting fixtures that are on the floor. Um, so classes are not hierarchical in terms of stacking order. However, you can have subclasses. So for example, here in lighting, there's control, follow spot, and LED classes that all get controlled together. The main way I try to think about classes and layers is how I want to control the drawing. You can turn layers and classes on and off. And so it's really about what you see. Like for example, right now we have one design layer. Um, but say I want to create a layer that is my stage, my base layer for the stage. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to create a new layer by hitting New Design Layer. We'll talk about sheet layers later and call it Stage. So this is the stage level. Now, right now, you notice that the stage got gray. That's because in my layer options, I have gray snap others on. You can have show snap others, show snap modify others. Show snap others is nice because it won't let you modify what you're working in. So if I create a new object, it's going to have the class and layer that I currently have selected. So right now I have the none class selected, which you have to have in Vectorworks. It basically is just a catch-all class. Um, and I have the design layer one selected. So right now I have that's anything I draw is gonna be there. If I want to change what my selected class is, I can either click the check mark here, or I could change it up here, um, and select a layer up here of what my primary layer is that I'm working in. But say I was like, oh, really, I wanted that to be in the stage layer. I can go over here in the object info palette, which again, if you don't have this in the side, you can go up to Window, Palettes, Object Info, um, and select which layer I want it to be in, stage layer, and now it's in the same layer as my stage. Of course, I'm still in design layer, so I can't modify it. So if I hit stage, now I can bring this to my stage layer. Okay, so say I have the stage layer, and then I want to um, add a layer for my back of house um, equipment. So I want to make a layer called back of house, which I guess is technically front of house, but that's how I want to do it. And I am going to try and show snap modify there. So now I can modify anything, any layer, but you just got to be careful so that when you create new objects, it is doing what you think it should be doing. And I'm going to put this in back of house layer. So the nice thing is now I can turn off different parts. You can't turn off the active layer, like it always stays there. But if I click here, then now that's gone. So if you want to have control over these two areas separately, that's how you do that. Um, I might call this all one layer, but that's just me. Under classes, though, you might have things like, well, I don't know what class this is. This isn't the none class, but maybe I want to create a class called furniture. Okay, so I'm going to put this is the table, and I'm going to put this in the furniture class. And then this is a lighting console. This is going to be in lighting. It should actually be in lighting control. And now that's set up in classes there. These will become much more apparent as the drawings start to become more complex. Um, you also have things like the dimension class, which is an automatically created class when you have dimensions, but you can assign them. You can assign them to other classes as well, as you're building your layers. Um, so again, the difference between layers and classes, layers have an actual stacked level. So anything that's right now, like if I brought this up here, this would actually be on top of that. So the way the drawing views it is that this is on top of, so no matter how much I send forward or backward, that's always going to be on top of that. In fact, that's actually the wrong way around because actually I think the best, I'm going to change this to be floor, right? So the floor layer, there's the stage layer. So floor actually goes below the stage because the floor is at the ground. Yes, I did know that. And so now the stage is a higher priority because it's higher up in the air. So say our stage is 5 feet, 5 feet in the air. That's going to be 5 feet higher than this. And when we get into 3D, we'll talk about how you can actually make it so that the layers automatically get assigned a certain height and that sort of thing, and that becomes useful later on. Other layers that we're going to need are going to be lighting positions, or lighting layer is what we'll call it. So there'll be lights that go on top of that. There'll be a scenic layer. So we're going to put this underneath lighting. Show me that again. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can actually see what priority the layers are. So lighting is going to be on top, scenic is going to be the next, and then the stage itself. And then the floor, which will include things like back of house, any seating that we add in, that sort of thing. Classes really depends. I mean, we're in the layer stage. Class could also be, for this, could be stage. We could also have a stage class, and that's just the stage itself. But anything that's in the stage layer, like we could add stairs that go up the stage, that sort of thing. We could add masking that might be in the stage layer, or it might be in the scenic layer. Depends on your sort of philosophy on some of that. And so that's going to be what we do with layers and classes. Now, the other thing that is important with layers is that they affect scale. So right now, everything here is in 1/4 inch scale. I actually tend to put things in 1:1 or 1/4 inch, depending on certain preferences. I'll show you later why it doesn't really matter exactly what you draft in. But in this, you can decide the scale. So if you get drawings that are, say you get a PDF import that's 1/4 inch, you can scale everything to be 1/4 inch as well. You just hit scale, and you have these are most of the ones that I use, unless I do 1:1, which is the metric. You can also do enlargements, which sometimes, if you're doing a PDF, is what you want. This is also where you can put the elevation. So if you want scenic to be 5 feet in the air, you can decide that scenic is 5 feet in the air. You can decide that lighting starts at a certain elevation. So design layer 1's kind of our catch-all one. The floor is 0. Maybe the stage is at 5 feet. The scenic starts at 5 feet, but this is sort of like a zero layer. Um, and then this, let's say our lighting trims are going to be something like 20 feet. Um, so these are the elevations that we're going to be at. We'll talk about wall height when we get into 3D and all of that. We'll talk about cut planes and that as well. Let's see, we'll talk about sheet layers later on. But something that I really advocate for is to make sure that you really plan out your layers and classes before you get going. And then as you continue going through your drawing, you continually think about making sure that everything is organized, layers and classes. There's nothing worse than having your drawing pretty much completely done and then not being able to control things the way that you want to be able to control things. The other thing that I'll touch on quickly about classes that is different than layers. You'll notice that these are the options for classes, for layers. These are the options for classes. Classes also define line weight. So you can make it so that each class has its own thickness that's automatically defined, its own color, its own fill, its line type, its opacity. That all of those settings can be defined by class automatically. So when you're working in a class, you know that somebody's going to have all of your drawings. So like if you want architecture to be a certain thickness, and you always put that in the in that wall class, then that's how you organize classes. Is sort of by things should have similar um, uh, similar line weights and that sort of thing. Um, you can change it. So like example, if I'm looking at this in the object info, I can change this so it doesn't meet the class, what the class is. But you'll notice here you can always revert it back to class thickness. So it goes to what the class thickness is. I don't like that for that particular thing, so we'll keep that at 0.25. But you can always revert it to the class style, but you can also select individual objects as well separately. So that is a short overview of classes and layers. In the next bit, we'll be talking about setting up drawing and going through a couple of preferences. That'll also be a quick bit before we get into scene design. Thank you.